Hey guys, Christopher here.
Hey guys, Noah here.
It's a couple days early, but I'll say it early. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
The most wonderful time of the year.
Hell yeah, brother.
I always tell people I'm at my height of my power this time of year.
Oh, that makes sense. At the height of power. Before we get really started today, I have a little bit of a shout out slash announcement for the day because I've been seeing the hashtags for way too long at this point, and I thought, you know what? It's time for something to come back. And as we kind of mentioned last week, I had that Halloween party. So this is where this is coming from. I finally got restocked, but here you go, Kim Ashworth. I officially have the Red Solo Cup return. And the good news is that it's probably here to stay for a while because I have a lot of red solo cups from left over from that party. So we have a long time before there's another shortage.
I don't know that I have any in my house. I always just drink the same thing. I'm always drinking out of my bottled water.
It's
So
not something I regularly stock up on. So when I have a party, all of a sudden now I have a bunch of them.
they are handy. They get the job done.
I'm not gonna lie. There's sometimes that they're nice because whenever you just like you don't feel like doing dishes and you're just like, I'll just throw this away.
I fully understand that. That happens more and more.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever use a real dish and just not feel like washing it and throw it away instead?
That may have happened at least once. I feel like that's probably happened. Like something that was just so disgusting that I was like, nope, goodbye.
Right. I'm sure that's how I went about it. It wasn't just laziness. Like, I don't feel like washing this. I'm just going to throw it away. It was horrible or stained or something from cooking.
Something,
And it's like,
right.
it's not
Like,
worth the energy.
right. Like, I'm going to have to put a lot of effort into, like, getting this clean. And then you're just like, screw it. Well, to kind of get on today's topic, because today's topic is not about cups. We should probably put
Nor
that as
throwing dirty dishes away.
it's not about dirty dishes. It's not about cups. Today we're going to be talking about our real life ghost stories with each other before we ever met. Just all kinds of real life ghost stories in honor of the Halloween season. So today's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about it.
This is going to be fun.
Hell yeah. So why
Why
don't
don't
you
you
go ahead?
start? Oh, you're going to tell me to
I
start?
was going to tell you to start. I was like,
All right. I will take that invitation. I will start. I'm going to back way up here. This is definitely before we met. This is when I lived in an apartment in West Allis, Wisconsin in probably 2009. It was a 4-family apartment. And after they remodeled it, my ex and I were the first ones to move in. So we lived in the building alone for several months.
okay.
And eventually the other units filled. One night, my ex had been at work. I was laying in bed, bedroom door closed, and I heard a noise outside the bedroom door. I thought, all right, they're home from work. And then the bedroom door opened, and there was no one standing there. My French bulldog, Piggy, got up, jumped off the bed, and was standing there staring into the living room at nothing. I mean, I couldn't even see what was there. And, I can often see what's there. Not in this instance. So as I'm observing the dog, I suddenly see like lights just swirling around the room, all these different lights from all different places. And I'm thinking, that's got to be cars going by on the street. I've got to be seeing headlights. And then I remembered the street was closed for 8 blocks. There would have never been cars going by, especially at that volume. So at this point, I walked out of the bedroom and I'm standing in the living room. I'm looking toward the kitchen. And you know the space underneath the door, you can see the little crack there. I'm looking at the crack underneath the kitchen door that leads out into the hallway, and that little space looked so dark. I thought to myself, I am never going into that hallway again. I'm going to die right here in this apartment because there's something out there and it's fucking disgusting.
Wow.
Well, obviously, I did not stay in that apartment forever. I ended up going to work the next day, and when I came home, there were lights on in the attic. You could see lights on in the attic. There was no electricity in the attic.
What?
So I went upstairs and there were no lights.
That's
So at this
insane.
point, I know, and it even gets worse. At this point, I'm like, all right, I need to go about my night. I need to go do some laundry. So I take a basket of laundry downstairs to the basement. I'm loading the washer and I stopped dead. It was just this feeling like there was someone behind me reaching out to me and their hand was so close. Like any second, I expected to feel their hand on my shoulder. And then I spoke. I said something. And in the moment, I didn't realize what I said, but I said something. And then I went about loading the washer and I went upstairs and I went, shit, I know what I just said. I'd said, I know, I don't like them either. And what that meant hit me almost instantly. The people who'd moved into Unit 2 had nearly burned the building down a few days earlier.
Oh.
Whatever or whomever haunted this building did not like the people living in that unit and wanted them gone.
Wow.
So I did a little work, maybe a little witchcraft, maybe not. Maybe just calling complaints until they were gone, but eventually they were gone and everything in the building settled down. That's truly what it was. The spirits of that building did not like the people living in Unit 2 and they wanted them gone.
Wow, that's crazy. That's so
Even,
cool. That's cool though.
even after I moved out of there were times where I'd drive by and I'd get an impression like, hey, we need help. There's someone here that we don't like. And it's like, hey, yeah, you're on your own. I don't live there anymore. Figure it out.
I don't live there anymore. That's your problem. That's
Not my
funny.
problem.
That's funny though.
It was pretty cool.
You wonder,
It was probably the most. What's that?
that's something that you wonder though. Like, how often does that happen? Where it's just a lot of the activity gets spiked up just because the spirits don't like who's ever living there.
For sure.
I feel like that's actually like a really common occurrence.
I agree. I mean, I know from experience, I truly feel that when the building that's now the Fairfield County Infirmary always has been, but at one point in history it was Habitat for Humanity,
Right.
and they ran that jump scare haunted house out of there. I
Yeah.
feel like the spirits hated it. And when that gets mentioned, when there's any reason for the spirits to be reminded of that, they get pissed off.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that point of view. I get that.
Right. Someday I'm going to be mean and nasty. If somebody's in my house and I don't like them, it's going to be the worst haunting ever.
Be like scenes from the Poltergeist.
Hell yes. They'll have both me and Zeke to deal with.
Technically the same.
Yes. But sometimes they function independently.
My first story that I'm going to be telling again goes way back before you and I had ever met, and mine's not nearly, I think, as cool, I think, as your story there. But it was pretty cool to me at the time, so we'll tell it. I was either 13 or 14 at the time of this. I can't quite remember. It was either 13 or 14. I know I was in middle school at this point. And at that point in time, one of the things that my grandfather always wanted us to do was to come out to his house and spend a whole week with him out in the summer. And my grandfather lives like few hours away from where we live. He lives down in like Athens, Ohio. And so this one summer we went down there to stay a week, and it was in that house is my grandfather and my aunt and her sons and stuff like that. So I was going to be staying in the room with my cousin. And so when we got there, it's the first night, and I'm getting my stuff in the room, and I'm talking to my cousin, and he was kind of like, "Hey, I didn't know if you knew this, but the house is haunted." And I was kind of like, "What? No way!" And he's like, "Yeah, no, seriously, like it's haunted, like all the time." And so I was like, "All right, all right. So what's some of the stuff that happens around here?" And he's like, "Well, the most prominent thing he's like that I know of is every like he's like not every night, but almost every night at exactly 3 a.m. my door will get knocked on." And he's like, "And it's not a light knock; it's like really banging knocks." And I was like, "There's no way." I'm thinking there's no way that this is going on. And so I'm like, all right, cool. So I like at this point I was really into the paranormal. That was like at the height of my when I was really getting into the paranormal scene and stuff like that. So that's what I was like, okay, cool. Like let's test this out. Let's stay up tonight till 3 a.m. and see if it happens. And he's like, all right, cool. So we're in his room and we're staying up, and it gets to right before 3 a.m. And I'm like, all right, cool, here it comes. So I'm getting ready, and I'm sitting there. It hits 3 a.m. Nothing happens, and I'm disappointed at this point. I wait a few more minutes. I'm like, all right, maybe it's not exactly 3 a.m. Maybe he was kind of over exaggerating that a little bit. So I wait a few more minutes. Nothing happens, and I'm disappointed at this point. I'm like, man, like you just like what's going on here? Like, why are you lying to me about this? He's like, no, I'm serious. He's like, it doesn't happen every night, but he's like, one of these nights it's gonna happen. I've never gone a week without it happening. I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't believe him at this point. I think he's just pulling my leg. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we'll put this to the test. Every night we'll stay up. You know, we'll stay up. It comes the next night. Do the same thing. We're staying up. It gets again close to 3 a.m. I'm like, all right. It's about 2 minutes before. I'm like, all right. We're gonna get it this time. It hits three. It again. I'm not gonna exaggerate this. It hit 3 a.m. And it was like a few seconds right after it hit 3 a.m. And he was right. It wasn't a small little tap. It was bang, bang, bang right on that door. It scared the shit out of me, actually. Like the loud bangs scared. And at this point, I'm sitting there thinking, this motherfucker just had his cousin, like his brother, my other cousin, come down here and bang on this door. Like they're trying to mess with me here. So I'm like, so I instantly shoot up out of bed whenever I hear these knocks because I'm gonna catch this dude. And I open up the door. There's nobody there, but there's across the hallway. There's a door to the basement of the house, and the door is open. And all I see in the doorway is a sort of like white silhouette, and it's going down the stairs. And that's all I saw. And this did happen a couple more times while I was there, like this exact same story. And
Wow.
so as a kid that was like really at his height of getting into the paranormal, it's one of those stories that will stick with me because I have no way of explaining that paranormal activity. It was so prominent enough that it's like you couldn't mistake it. There was no mistaking these loud bangs. Like they were loud. Like if I was to go and just as hard as I can knock on that door. You know what I mean? It was like that. So there was no convincing me that it was something else. And like I said, if I would have never checked, I could have sat there and said, "Oh, it's probably my other cousin, like, trying to play a prank on me, whatever." But I went and checked. Nobody was there, and I would have heard if somebody was really running off. You know what I mean? Like, it was just,
Right.
it was one of those things that I couldn't explain, and um, it's not my earliest story as far as the paranormal, but I think it's one of the most prominent ones that I had as a kid that was like, there's no way to debunk this in my head. So I was like, this is it. This is what got me really, really like wanting to find answers on
That's pretty cool.
it. Yeah.
How old do you think you were when that happened?
I was either 13 or 14. I was either
Oh,
13 or 14 because I know I was in middle school at the time. I was either in the 7th or 8th grade. And so that's where I'm like, I was either 13 or 14. So I was also like old enough to know like of certain things, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't young.
right. I would have eaten that up at that age. I would have been all over that.
Oh, that's what got me into really into stuff. And I was already watching some of the like the main shows like Ghost Hunters and stuff like that at that point in time, but that was also at the height of when I was getting into things like Ancient Aliens and stuff like that. Like
Right.
that was at the height of that kind of stuff.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a cool one.
So I've been to the Monroe House in Hartford City, Indiana, a number of times. I've not been out there this year, sadly. I usually go every year. And I'm really trying to keep my stories more like unexplained things, like the lights and the doors opening. And I'm trying to
Right.
kind of stay away from my psychic connections tonight. But this story is going to bring both together.
Right.
I need to do a setup here to just give the pace for the night. So a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, invited me out to Monroe House, and there were going to be a few other people there. I did not realize at the time that two of the other people who were going to be there were associated with an event that I'd backed out of going to
Oh.
because these people that organized this event had threatened a friend of mine days earlier.
What?
Yes, this is, by the way, my story here and about these people who threatened a friend of mine. This has nothing to do with the Monroe House itself. This has nothing to do with the owners of the house. That is a wonderful location with wonderful owners. This has nothing to do with the person who invited me either. So it
Okay.
was just, there's these people who ran an event. They were shitty people. They threatened a friend of mine. I backed out of an event of theirs because I'm like, no, if I go, there's going to be problems.
Right. That
I
makes
didn't
sense.
know that these people were going to be at the Monroe House a few days later.
Ooh.
So I get there and I get out of my car. My friend comes out to greet me and she mentions these two people by name and says they're inside walking around and they have a real problem with the Ouija boards there. And when I heard the two names, I was like, what? I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to be good.
Right.
So I walk in and I somehow made myself look like 4 times my size. I had to go in and pee on everything and assert my dominance.
Right.
I start walking around the house and this woman comes up to me, one of the two that I've got issues with,
Hmm.
and she says, "You can sleep in the bedroom tonight." I just sat on the bed and it started shaking. That's how she greeted me. And I thought, yeah, whatever. I've slept in that bedroom before. It's no problem. I'll sleep in the bedroom. It's all good. So I decided to go walk around the house and just feel the energy.
Hmm.
One of the most distinctive features of the house, there's a big hole in the basement wall that leads into a crawl space.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
My first time there, I'd gone in that crawl space, sat there for like 20 minutes, had a great session.
Hmm.
This particular time, I go down the stairs, I stick my hole in my head in the hole
Hmm.
and think, I'm not going in there because there's something in there and there's not enough room for both of us. It was a very specific thought. It wasn't, I can't go in there because I'll die, it'll eat me.
Hmm.
It was, there's not enough room for both of us. So I go back upstairs, and a few minutes later, this woman looks at me and says, should I go climb in the hole? And I said, yes.
Yes.
Yes, you should. So she and her husband go downstairs, and I go sit in the living room. I'm just sitting there on the couch by myself waiting. 5 minutes. Horrific screams coming from the basement. She couldn't get out of the wall. She was stuck.
Oh my god.
Because there wasn't enough room for more than one.
Right.
It took him
Oh.
about 30 minutes to get her out of the wall.
Oh my god.
I did not offer any assistance. I just sat on the couch and listened to the screams. So once they came upstairs, they started to explain to me what was happening down there. And I said, I'm going upstairs to do a session. I didn't even bother to listen to them. I go into the room that's more or less set up as a child's room. There's dolls everywhere.
Hmm.
And I'm communicating with the spirit of a young girl named Lydia on the Ouija board.
Okay.
Had a great session. In the middle of it, my buddy Patience messages me and says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just having a session with Lydia. And she's been there with me, so she's familiar with the spirit. We're on a video call, and Patience starts talking to Lydia and says, hey, Lydia, show us your favorite doll. And instantly there was a series of music notes that came out of nowhere. So I've got her on the video call. I take the phone over to the wall of dolls and I start picking them up one by one. I get to the fifth doll. The fifth doll was a music box.
Oh.
So when she said, show us your favorite doll, she did instantly.
That's cool.
That was pretty amazing.
That's cool.
Definitely need to get back to that place.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. And kind of like you said too, before that, like with most of these stories, you're trying to stay a little bit away from the whole psychic thing.
Right.
That does make this a little hard because I'm kind of trying to do the same thing in a sense. Like I'm trying to stay away from stories that I think could be easily sort of debunked,
Right.
or I shouldn't say easily debunked. It's just more of it's kind of like I can't clearly say to you that like there was no way for me to explain it away, sort
Right.
of thing. So I'm kind of trying to do the same thing, and it's hard. It is kind of hard to do that sometimes. It's kind of like it's why I like to when I talk to people, I like to tell them it's like, hey, I'm not saying that any of this is 1,000% paranormal. I'm saying that it's weird. I'm not 1,000% sure why it happened or how it happened. I just want you to watch it and notice if there's any sort of patterns because I feel like that's where we start to understand when things are paranormal and when they're not. It's
Right.
based off of the patterns. Is it happening more than once? Is it happening the same way more than
Right.
once? Are things lining up in such a synchronistic way that it can't just be mere coincidence. So I
For
just thought
sure.
I'll say that as well because so this next one, mind you, I just said this, and I know technically what I'm getting ready to say could kind of be explained away, but I don't think so. So it is what it is. This actually, we jump a little bit forward, and this was actually my very first official paranormal investigation ever. Um, and mind you, I had at this point in my life, I had done a few things before this that were like kind of like a paranormal investigating. But when I say it was my first official one, I mean in the sense of we had one video camera and a few pieces of devices. And this is where me, my best friend Gage, and my best friend Lucas had decided we were going to start our own little paranormal investigation group called the Belmont Paranormal Society, and we were going to start paranormal investigating. And this was our very first location, which is such a cool location. I'm so excited to finally get back there this year, and it is the Moundsville Penitentiary. And so the way that this story starts, we went on one of those public ghost hunts, the ones where there's like 100 different people there at the same time. And they start at I think 11 p.m. is when they start because I'm pretty sure it starts at 11 p.m. You do about an hour and a half of a tour, and then they kind of let you loose. And the reason I remember it starts at 11 is because at this point in time, the three of us all work at a prison. Me and Gage actually work at the same prison, and then my other buddy Lucas, he worked at another prison that wasn't too far from that. But anyway, we all got off at 10 o'clock because we worked the 2 to 10 shift. And so I remember we were like, okay, so we'll get off of work and then we'll go straight to the Moundsville Penitentiary, and we'll beat Lucas there because he's got a little bit more of a drive to get there. But we'll get there first and we'll like start the tour and he'll like meet up with us. So we get there and we're going throughout this tour, and we're down in the Sugar Shack. Okay, we're down in the Sugar Shack. We're doing this tour, and all of a sudden, I feel like what feels like a couple of people's fingers, like brush across my ear. And I look back, and it's my buddy Lucas. And he just got there. He was trying to mess with me when he got there because he didn't tell me he was there yet, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay, cool. He's here, whatever. I'm telling you this part of the story so it kind of distinguishes the difference. So we continue to tour. We get done with it. And now it's time that they're going to let us loose. And we're standing in like the main like hallway of the Moundsville Penitentiary that's outside of like the gift shop area. And they're like, all right, everybody's free to go, and like you guys can go investigate whatever. Like I said, there's about 100 people there, and we're in the clear back. We're in the way back of this thing because we kind of wanted to watch to see where everybody else went, to see if there's anywhere that we could get where nobody would be there. Right? We were trying to do this strategically. And crazy enough, I still to this day don't understand this, but we're watching everybody else and nobody goes back towards the asylum. Everybody else is going the opposite way. And we're like, holy shit, we're going to have the asylum to ourselves? No freaking way. So we take off. We're literally running throughout the Moundsville Penitentiary to make it to the asylum. And we knew nobody else was going to get there because, like I said, the way that hallway is set up, everything else is like that way. And then the asylum and something else was back directly behind us. So nobody else went that way. So we were like, okay, cool. We know for at least a little bit we're going to have this all to ourselves. So we take off running. We get there. The first part of this was actually before we even got cameras rolling. We're literally sitting there, Gage and I, are getting stuff out of our backpacks, trying to get this camera set up, yada, yada, yada. And they have those really thick, like metal prison doors, and it was open. And it slams shut, okay? This was the first thing I couldn't explain because we go over, and I mean, if you haven't been around one of these thick metal doors, you're not really gonna understand. But they're so thick and so heavy that you have to put some force behind shutting these things. First of all, there was no draft. There was first of all no draft. Also, if there was a draft, it would have to be like 90-mile-per-hour winds to like get this thing to shut. It's so heavy. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. Um, there was no draft because it was like 90 degrees up in the insane asylum at like 12:30 at night. It was in the middle of July, so it was hot as hell up there. And there was no draft. We were sweating like pigs. So we go over, we try to recreate it. I open it back up. I try to make as much wind as I possibly can to see if it will move. I try to see if maybe the building's offset a little bit to where, like, if it's at the right angle, maybe it'll shut. I'm trying literally everything I possibly can think of to get this door to shut, and it won't do it. It just will not do it. I had to forcefully slam this door to recreate what had just happened. And I was so angry because this happened. This was like one of the coolest things I'd ever seen, like physically. And I didn't even have the camera rolling yet. We were trying to get it set up, and I was so angry by this. So we deal with that. Can't really understand what just happened. We get cameras rolling. We're walking down the asylum, and we're trying to also recreate a photo that Gage had on his phone from like a year before this, where he went on a flashlight tour with his wife at the time. Well, she wasn't his wife at the time, but his now wife. They went on a date there to do like a flashlight tour, which I thought was really cool. First of all, and he had this picture up in the asylum where you could very easily see like two glowing yellow eyes in one of the window things. And it wasn't the window that's like out towards the street. So first of all, you can't say it's like, oh, it's just a car. It wasn't on the window of like outside. It was inside, like in the middle of the building. So first of all, we had that part. We was like, well, I don't know how this could be a car because it's on the inside of the building, not the outside. But then we're starting to think, well, maybe is it a reflection of something? We're trying to think here. We're trying to be really logical about this. And we couldn't recreate the photo. We tried lights. We tried to imitate a car because we basically took a couple lights and like kind of spaced them out like maybe a headlight would do going throughout that window. We couldn't do it. Nothing was recreating this photo. So we thought that was cool. We couldn't recreate this photo, so we thought that was cool. Then, about 5 minutes into recreating this photo, I'm standing there, and Gage is in the room with me, and then our buddy Lucas was, I don't know where he was, but he was somewhere else throughout the asylum. He went somewhere else. But I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I feel somebody like take their hand and like grope basically the back of my neck. And I instantly did the same thing before where I turned around to like look at Lucas because I thought it was him again just screwing with me. And he wasn't there. There was nobody there. So I even hollered like, Lucas, where are you at? And I'm thinking like, well, maybe he just turned the corner real quick, Maybe he could have been stealthy enough that I wouldn't have heard him and he would have like turned the corner. But I holler and he's at the clear other end of the asylum. And now I'm standing there like, whoa, what just happened? Like, so that was really cool. The Mousel Penitentiary, for this story, just right there, 3 examples of things I can't explain. And it's like, this was back when we didn't know like anything as far as like how to be real paranormal investigators. Like the camera we were using was a really cheap camera. The audio was terrible. we were just very green when it came to paranormal investigating. And so, and it's always stuck with me because I was like, we had such good stuff, but the video is out there. You can watch this video on YouTube. It's under the Belmont Paranormal Society, and it's the very first one where we went to Moundsville Penitentiary. You can watch it. I just it's a little rough because again, the video camera we were using was kind of a cheap camera. The audio we were trying to figure out editing and stuff like that. It was very rough, very very rough, but it was still kind of a good time. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, go check out that video. But I'm so excited now. Like obviously we're not professionals by any means, but we're obviously a lot like I've come a long way from where I started as far as like my knowledge of these things and my editing has come a long way. So I'm excited to go back and get and maybe experience some more things like that. I'm really excited for that.
I love that place.
The place is awesome.
Even though my first night was absolutely ruined by the bats.
Yeah, I can see that.
Horrible.
See that.
We should be safe going in November.
We should be. I would hope so. I'll be the exact opposite of last time though, because last time I was like scorching hot, where I was literally just sweating like a pig. This time I'll be freezing.
Every time I've been there, it's been very hot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've been there in the cold yet.
I'm gonna layer up. Is what's gonna happen.
Oh, for sure. My heated jacket's coming out.
I'm gonna be layered.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
So
what's another one for you?
What's that?
What's another one for you?
Last week I talked about the Jacobin Center and the Warden Suite.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other things that happened there in that building. This was one of the weekends where I'd hosted an overnight psychic immersion for a group of people to work on enhancing their psychic abilities.
Okay.
There were 12 of us, and we got to the part of the night where it was just like free roam. People could go and do their own thing and go connect how they wanted to. And I know two of the guys in the group had gone up to the 4th floor, didn't know what they were digging into, what they were doing. But I was down in our suite talking to my friend Diana, and there was this absolutely massive clap of thunder, and the lightning that came with it lit everything up. I mean, it's like, I can't believe the building wasn't struck by lightning the way it lit up. And I looked at Diana and I'm like, I'm giving it 5 seconds until the guys are back down here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and they fall over themselves running back into the room. So I'm like, what happened? They had said just after the clap of thunder, the door they were sitting outside of opened. Mm-hmm. And inside they saw a very clear figure of a nun. And this used to be a convent, so seeing a nun there is not out of the ordinary. As I've tried to explain that away, I mean, I can't explain what they saw, but the door opening, could the thunder have vibrated the building in a way that the door opened? Probably. What are the odds that it was the door that they just happened to be outside of? There's that. Another thing in that same building, and it's really hard to get away from the psychic piece with this one, but there's still something attached to this that is absolutely inexplainable, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. We were there right around this time of year, and we were there celebrating Samhain, and we did a workshop and this lovely ritual, and we had a traditional Samhain dumb supper to honor the ancestors. We're sitting there at dinner, and I think you've heard me tell this story, but 40 people walked into the dining room with pictures of their ancestors to sit at the table and to invite their spirits in. Right. I'm sitting there at this picture of my grandfather, and I see as clearly as I'm seeing you on the screen,
Mhm.
the ghost of my dead French bulldog walk in the room carrying something in his mouth.
Wow.
And now I'm sitting there looking around. I'm looking at everybody else. They're sitting there having their moment with their ancestors, eating dinner silently. And I'm just like bug-eyed looking around. I want to tap the people next to me and point and be like, you see the dog?
Right?
There's that. And then I'm also going, what the fuck does he have in his mouth? So I'm like trying to lean over. I'm like, hoping he'll come over and give me what he's got.
Wow.
But he didn't. He walked out of the room. He was just gone. So it was time to leave the dining room. 40 people got up to leave the dining room together. And on the walkway into the dining room, there was now laying a dead bat.
Huh.
There's no way it was there when we walked in.
Right.
One of the 40 people would have seen it on this narrow
Oh.
little path.
Yeah. Somebody would have seen that.
So I see the ghost of my dead French bulldog with something in his mouth. We leave the dining room and there's a dead bat on the path.
And the significance that that has for you personally is like,
Back then, bats weren't a problem for me. So I feel like it was almost a warning.
yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought at that point bats were already an issue for you.
No, I didn't have an issue with bats until I would say at least 3 or 4 years later when one assaulted me at the Monroe house, actually.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I had no issues with them. Around that same time that this happened with the bat in the walkway, I'd been teaching a water fitness class for a health club. I had tipped over a bucket of noodles so my participants could get their noodles. A bat fell out of the bucket, landed in the water. I picked it up with a noodle, set it on the deck. Everybody scattered. Class was over. Nobody wanted to be there anymore with the bat. So I called maintenance. They're like, well, we're going to throw it outside. I'm like, you can't. They're like, why? I'm like, it's cold. It's February. It'll freeze to death. And I ended up collecting this bat and taking it to animal control. I had no issue. Not until the Monroe house.
Now you've got my head spinning with things. So I feel like we're going to talk about that again because now my head is spinning with ideas that I can't really talk about on camera right now but now you've got my head spinning with stuff. So we're gonna talk about this again. We're gonna revisit this because now my head is spinning.
So many other weird pieces of this. This dog had a history of catching things. I mean, he brought me rabbits and squirrels. Probably the worst was a toad. We were camping and he brought me a toad. I'm like, Piggy, drop the toad. And he just crunches down on it. Next thing you know, he's foaming at the mouth, chewing on the toad and looking at me with this complete obstinance. Like, I'm not putting it down. I'm miserable right now, but I'm not putting it down.
Right.
The other interesting thing about Piggy, he was a magical little dog. If I was doing a reading, if I was doing any type of spell working, if I was engaged in any sort of ritual, this dog had to be there. He was giving his energy to this. He was a magical little being. So the idea of him coming and giving me this warning that, hey, this is going to be a big problem for you, I can absolutely wrap my mind around that.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's really, really cool.
No, my bat problem didn't start until the Monroe house. It was 3:30 in the morning. I was ready for bed. I came down the stairs from using the bathroom. And out of nowhere, something almost hit me in the face. I felt my soul trying to leave my body. I realized what was happening. I watched this bat go around the room 3 times. I'm screaming. I'm hysterical. I ran out of the room, slammed the kitchen door. I heard another scream. I thought it was the bat. It wasn't a bat. It was my friend Patience. I almost killed her while trying to leave the room, and I didn't even see her. I was so freaked out. No, that's when my bat trauma started.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're gonna talk about that again.
Well,
We're gonna talk about that again because that's interesting. I like that.
oh, one thing I didn't mention. Now I've jumped all over the place. I'm going to go back to the Monroe house for a second. The night with these horrible people and how
Oh
she
yeah, yeah,
greeted
yeah.
me by
Okay.
saying, "You can sleep in the bedroom." The bed was shaking.
Hmm.
So I did sleep in the bedroom, as I've slept there a number of times. At some point during the night, I like shot up out of a dead sleep. I'm like, what? Wait, what's happening?
Hmm.
I realized what woke me up was silence. The air conditioner had stopped running, and the
Oh.
silence jarred me awake. I'm like, all right, I just got up and turned the air back on, no problem. A little
Hmm.
while later, I woke up again. What now? The air was still running, and then I realized the bed was vibrating.
Oh.
Now, notice I used the word vibrating. I didn't say shaking. The way
Right.
she described it, she made it sound like The Exorcist. The bed is going
Right.
up and down.
Right. Right. Right.
As I was laying there, it was just like a gentle back and forth vibration. And my response to that was, okay, I know you're here. Can I go back to sleep now? The vibration stopped. I fell back asleep.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's very
Maybe for her, the bed was shaking. Maybe whatever was in there recognized that she was a horrible person.
Get off my bed. Maybe could have been. Could have been. Um, for my next story, it'll probably, I guess, by the time it'll probably be my last story that I tell. Um, but I am going back again, and this is actually now to my second ever investigation. Again, under the Belmont Paranormal Society, and as you already know, this particular location is to this day probably the most important location in everything that I'm working on. And when I look back at it, it's so funny that this was actually just my second investigation ever. And I haven't been back there yet. I can't wait to get back there, and I know that I will be with everything that we're working on. But it is the infamous Belair House. And there was a few things that happened. I went there for it was a 2 day thing. We had booked the place for 2 nights because I was like, oh, we can't just go for one night. You know what I mean? We got to have it for a weekend. So we did. And there's a few different things that happened that I'm gonna stick to some of the things that I thought were really cool. That again can't as easily be explained, I guess. But the first thing, and this happened on the first night that we were there. And this was actually my very first ever Estes method. And obviously, the Estes method is something that we very heavily use now. But this is my very first one ever that I ever performed. And it actually wasn't Gage, because whenever I was at the Belmont Paranormal Society, Gage was always the person that was like you that always went under because he was really good at listening, and people can actually check out when Gage investigated with us at the Bill Manor series that we have out. That's the Gage that I'm referring to. And as people will see in that, he goes under and he's really good at listening to um, what is being said under the headset. And it wasn't him that did it. It was actually a another person that had worked with us at the prison. And I didn't know this guy super well at this point in time because I just knew I knew he worked at the prison and I'd worked with him a few times, but I didn't know him super well. We actually didn't even know each other's first names because at the prison we don't go by first names. You don't say our first name there. We just go by last name. So that's how we always talk to each other, was by last name. I didn't know his first name, he didn't know my first name. So he goes under the headset, and we're doing the Estes method, and we're doing it in the living room of the place. Now, during this Estes method, looking back, I think I understand more of what was going on. In the current point in time, I didn't, though. First of all, we were talking to a little girl spirit. I'm going to use quotations because at the time that's who I thought who I was talking to. Looking back at it, I'm I'm almost certain it wasn't. But that really has nothing to do with this particular part of the story. I'm just noticing that. But I'm talking to this little girl spirit, and we're getting great responses, like very poignant to what I'm asking. And mind you, I'm thinking this is cool as hell because this is my very first Estes method. I'd seen it on TV, but I'd never actually done it before. So this is the first time. So I'm like, I'm so infatuated with it because I can literally hear the radio through the headset. So I know there's no way he hears me. That is so loud. There's no way he hears me. And he's blindfolded. So I know he can't see me either. And so we're kind of going along. I'm asking questions. We're getting great responses. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I need something. I need something that's really going to tell me the intelligence of who I'm talking to and something that I know he's not going to know to like give me a really poignant answer on like who am I talking to, right? So I'm going to ask him something that I know he doesn't know the answer to. So I asked, "What's my first name?" What's my first name? I knew he didn't know that. I knew he didn't know that. So I asked him, "What's my first name?" No hesitation, nothing. Noah. Literally all of us light up in the room. Because like I said before, like we were asking good questions and we were getting good responses, but they were all sort of like yes, no type of answer, stuff like that. And it's like this was the first one that I had asked that was more of there's no guessing this. You know what I mean? You're either going to get it right or you're not. And I knew it was something he didn't even know. I know he can't hear me. I know he can't see me. So he answers, and our eyes bulge out of our heads. We're like, what the hell just happened? It was so, so cool. And that was the moment right there. I knew. I knew right then and there that I was like, this is going to be like the number one part of paranormal investigating that I'm going to focus on because of the type of answers we were getting. I had never, I had, to this day, we still obviously do other types of paranormal investigating, but there's no way to get answers, straightforward answers on things that's better than the Estes method. It just doesn't exist at this point in time.
Right.
There just isn't. Another part of this story at the Belair house that's kind of hard for me to explain as far as like explain away. This was the next night. And the first night and the second night were almost polar opposites of each other. Again, at the time, I didn't quite understand it. Looking back at it, I think I understand what was going on. The first night was very much inviting us in, making us feel comfortable there, making sure we felt okay. You know what I mean? Inviting us in, you know? The second night was a flip flop. The energy in that place was so dark, so evil. I haven't been to a place since then to really match that level of what was there. And we're up in the attic, and we're again going to perform another Estes method. And oh, this is so strange. We're getting ready to perform another Estes method. This time, Gage goes under, and he goes under the headset, and it's like me, um, our friend from work, John, his friend Harper was there. Um, my dad, my brother was there. Lucas was there. We had a few of us in this attic, and we're all sitting around, and Gage is under the headset, and we had rumors that that like there was something demonic there. You know what I mean? And that's where we were kind of like, I'm going to put this to the test because that's something that's just in my nature. I don't know what it is. You know this. I love when I feel like there's some sort of a challenge, I'm not afraid to try and meet that challenge.
Right.
I wanted to know how bad this thing really was. I'm not really scared of that stuff. It doesn't really scare me. I was more of just like, you're not about to scare me out of this house. So do whatever it is that you're going to do. So we decide we're going to poke the bear a little bit. And that's something I'm very good at doing. So Harper and my viewpoints on religion were a little bit different. And I have theories as to why this still worked out. And it's something I'll maybe talk about a little bit more at a later time when I get a little bit more of an idea about it. But I was a little bit more in the Christian religion at that point in time. And so was Harper. So we decided we were going to read prayer, the Lord's Prayer and stuff like that. And we start reading the Lord's Prayer. And almost immediately when he gets into reading this, Gage under the headset, he goes, like very emphatically, he goes, stop. So we look around and we're like, stop what? And it says provoking. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And so a few more things are talked about. We're still kind of poking at it. I'm still basically daring it. Do what you're gonna do. I don't think you can do shit. You know what I mean? I got scratched, first of all. I got scratched. That was one of the things that happened because it was whenever we lifted my shirt up later, it was a very visible scratch. I got sick, like to the point where I thought I was going to throw up. I very much in the middle of this Estes method. I get up and I think I'm going to throw up, but I had this sort of voice, like little voice in the back of my head that said, "No, that's what it wants. It wants you to leave the room. So you need to buck up. You need to stay in this room." So that's what I did. I sort of, as soon as I had that little voice in my head, I was kind of like, no, that's what it wants. It wants me to get sick where I'm going to leave the room. I need to stay. And it was almost as immediately as that, like, as quick as the sickness came where I felt like I was going to throw up, as soon as I had this sort of powering sort of idea in my head, like, no, I'm going to stick this out. You're not going to make me leave this room. It went away. I was no longer sick. I didn't have to throw up anymore. I was fine. I had that happen. And I'm still provoking. And all of a sudden, again, very emphatically, he's like, stop. And I'm like, stop what? Because I'm like irritated at this point. I'm very irritated at this point. I was very much feeling the energy that was in the room. I'm very irritated. And I'm like, stop what? And it says, stop provoking again. And I'm pissed at this point. I'm like, what are you going to do if I don't stop provoking you? Right? And it was like a couple seconds after I say this, he rips off the headset. And he's like, I don't want to say what I just heard. I was like, no, I think you have to say it. And he said, girlfriend will die. That's what it said. And I was kind of like, I took that as me. But the thing about it is that I will say that doesn't make a lot of sense to me was the idea that I had actually just gotten married like a month before this. Not a month. It was like 2 or 3 months before this. So I was kind of like, I don't know if it's just assuming that she's still my girlfriend. I don't know. Or if it's unrelated. I don't know. It was enough of a response that I was like, it has to be related. But I'm even sitting there like looking back at it. I was like, was it talking to me or was it talking to somebody else in the room? Because it could have been talking about Harper, because he did have a girlfriend and he was the one that was reading prayer. So I'm not 1,000% sure on who it was specifically talking about. But my point is that story happens. And so this kind of jarred me a little bit because I'd never heard anything like that come through like anything really. EVPs, nothing. I'd never had anything that dark and that serious come through. And so I'm kind of freaked out by this sort of story. So I go outside after this whole thing, and I actually called my wife on the phone. And I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" Like yada yada yada. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "The only thing that is kind of weird though is that I was just having a nightmare right before you called." Maybe that's coincidence, maybe it's not, but it's weird enough for it to stick in my head. So obviously, as you already know, there's a lot of unfinished business with that place, and
Oh, huh.
I'm excited to get back there because,
Me too.
ooh,
Me too. I think it's going to be an unforgettable experience.
oh yeah. I think too, though, that I was thinking as we were kind of telling these stories, there's also a lot of stories that I can't wait to talk about that are things we've experienced together. Because all the ones that we've talked about today are ones that we haven't had together.
Right.
And I'm really excited to tell those stories. I think we're going to do another one like this because obviously we just don't want to do it right now because there's so much that people haven't seen quite yet.
Right.
That I want people to see on screen before we talk about them. So I was sitting there thinking about some of the stuff that we've had happen to us, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell that story. And the biggest one that came into my head was the stuff that was happening at the Ross house. Oh, that's gonna be such a good one to talk about,
Yeah, I would love to talk about that sometime.
especially because the awesome sort of experiment that we did with the Estes method.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that one. Oh,
Yeah, that was fantastic.
it's so cool.
We could even at some point talk about our first time there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. And I think that'll kind of come into play when we do kind of recap the Ross house because we're gonna have to tell that story because not only like it was my first time being there, but it's what really started other than like, we met at the Fairfield County Infirmary when you gave me that tour, but it was what really started the ball on everything that we're doing right now because it was the very first
Right.
time you and I had ever investigated together. And I remember just how jarring that experience was because it took what I thought I knew about paranormal investigating and it flipped it on its head. Like the way that it sort of blew up, the way that I knew how to investigate and led into what we do now will forever stay with me. That experience was just beyond anything I'd ever done before.
Right. There are definitely moments that will stay with you forever. I mean, one of mine is a year ago, my first big experience at the Civil War House, walking
Right.
outside and having two people look at each other and not knowing who they were looking at. I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Right. It's crazy. But unfortunately, it looks like we pretty much are out of time for today. So I hope everybody enjoyed listening to some of our stories. I actually can't wait to do this again because this was a lot of fun to kind of sit
This
here and
was fun.
reminisce. Yeah.
And there were some things there that you talked about that I've never heard. I didn't know some of that. So that was really
Yeah.
cool.
I think that's, yeah, same. I mean, that's what's always cool is that it's always fun to look back and think about the stuff that's happened to you before and what led you to the moment that you're in. And yeah, so I love it. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, as always, I hope everybody enjoyed. Can't wait to talk to you guys next week. And hey, stay safe out in the Halloween season. Go have some fun.
Absolutely. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.